Walkout with Paul and Jay, with red hot stories from post game, interviews, analysis, debate the hour, fun here at the Growler.
All right, welcome into the Walkout. Paul Daner Jr. and Jay Morrison are here with you inside the Paycor Stadium temporary press briefing room, meeting room, as we are reacting to round one of the Bengals draft. And that was a day where Texas A&M edge rusher Shamar Stewart is the latest Bengal picked at 17 overall. You guys have thoughts.
They do.
You definitely have thoughts. We have thoughts. There's a lot to break down in terms of what all went down here at Paycor Stadium tonight, including some of the picks that could have been, the one that got taken out from right underneath their nose, what could happen tomorrow, and everyone's opinion, very loud, on traits versus production, one that will just continue to go on and on and on as we talk about that and the very big bet placed on Al Golden once again tonight.
That is it. It's a gamble. It's a bet. It's not a crazy bet. I mean, when you look at what he's been able to do, Shamar Stewart, with the traits, everything's there. And like Al said, there's no character issues. There's none of that other stuff, play style, effort, any of that. If you're going to have a ding on a guy, this production is where you want to lean into, and that is the case. 4.5 sacks in 3 years at Texas A&M. And I know you said it. You guys have thoughts. People had thoughts even before this happened. This better not happen was what you saw all over Twitter, all over everywhere, and it happened. And I think you see it all the time. The people come out with the negative stuff about prospects before the draft even happens. Not really fair to the kid. Kind of the same thing here. Let him get here before the pitchforks come out. I know that's not how Twitter works, but it's a gamble. I don't think it's a crazy gamble. If it doesn't work out, then yeah, it's going to blow up in their face. But there's bigger chances, bigger gambles you could take in this draft than this pick.
We're going to dive fully into the gamble and some of the background on what was said here. We talked to Shamar Stewart. We talked to Zac Taylor. We talked to Al Golden. They all had thoughts on this. And I want to bring out some other things because we talked about this at length during our noon live stream that we did, Who Day Bites, in the afternoon, about the vile hatred that seemed to be out there towards the idea of a Shamar Stewart pick before any of this ever happened. And so I want to revisit some of that conversation. We're going to be back tomorrow. So I don't know, whenever you're listening to this, I guess Friday at noon, we'll be back with another live stream. We'll be talking about tonight. We'll be previewing round 2 and everything else. We'll be taking some of your questions on there. So hop into that live stream on the YouTube page and come check us out and hang out with us. I don't know what Mark in the palm trees in Key West, and Charlie will come with some of his thoughts. All the gang will be there. So make sure you look for that and check that out. And then of course, Tuesday night, BetMGM, Nation Kitchen and Bar down at the Banks. We'll be down there talking about Shamar Stewart and all the rest of the picks that are about to happen over the weekend. Mike Potts, Bengals Director of College Scouting, will be in Nation with us, talking about all the picks, breaking them all down. We're going to be giving away preseason game tickets. We're going to be giving away free graders. The Reds start at 6:40. We will start at 5 o'clock with a happy hour show down at BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar. An awesome place to go before any game, and it'll be an awesome place to go on Tuesday because we're going to have all the Bengals talk as well. Come on down and see us there. On that note, let's talk a little bit about what transpired tonight. When we talk about kind of how this first round went, I find it interesting besides the bombshell at the top of the draft where the Cleveland Browns end up trading with Jacksonville, who goes and gets themselves a transcendent player in Travis Hunter, at least they hope so, and the Browns pile up picks. They end up taking Mason Graham. So if you were concerned about the Bengals guard situation, Mason Graham now being in Cleveland to go paired with Myles Garrett, you might not like. And Derek Harmon ending up in Pittsburgh to pair with Keanu Benton and Cam Hayward and company you might not like. They are here to exploit all your guard problematic needs. So that's part of what happens. But I thought it was really interesting, as we kind of come to see it now, how close Walter Nolan came.
Yeah.
You end up, there was a thought that maybe he was not going to be able to slide back, that maybe he could be a top 10 pick even. He could go before Mason Graham. A lot of talk about that, and yet there it was, pick 16, Arizona on the clock. Walter Nolan's still there. They nab him, and it could have been the type of pick that the Bengals would have hopped on.
Yeah, for sure. And you think about it, that Walter Nolan, a little bit of the character questions, Mike Green and James Pierce, and 2 of the 3 end up going in the first round, and Mike Green's still sitting out there. That was another potential pick for the Bengals. And Derek Harmon did make all the sense in the world, and he got sniped. And we've seen this before. We've seen actually the Steelers trade in front of the Bengals. What was the year with a linebacker? Now his name's escaping me. But Michigan linebacker. It happens. Devin Bush, yes. It happens, and it would have been interesting. And, it feels like that would have been the pick had the Bengals are never going to say that, but I don't think they're disappointed. I think they were in that position. When it got to Atlanta at 15, the trade back really felt like it was in play because so many of those pass rushers, not just edges, but Nolan in the middle, they were there, and maybe there wasn't an offer to come up, but it felt like there was so many of those guys that were so close together on boards that they could have traded back a few spots knowing they would still get one, but that's not what happened. They ended up going with Shamar Stewart, and we are here to talk about it.
Yeah. And Tyler Booker ends up going 12 too, the guard out of Alabama, who I think the Bengals would have had a lot of interest in taking if he would have been there. And I think the board kind of fell as they thought. The league saw it as the Bengals saw it. It feels like in retrospect that, look, there they all kind of went, and there was Shamar Stewart. So let's discuss this. Let's talk in full. Here's my thing. I think that this is like you said, this is a gamble. This is a bet. I think most of the distaste from Bengals fans comes from a place of really over this conversation. They are living the Myles Murphy scar tissue still. Okay, it's still, you have the guy who had the athletic traits, but he didn't have a ton of production at Clemson. You can just see it coming. Why do you think it's going to change when you get to the NFL? I understand that that's real, and I get it. And now you have Al Golden having to develop not 1, but 2 players with traits who've had trouble finishing in the league. That said, Stewart is not Myles Murphy.
No.
Stewart is a better athlete. He is a 10.0 relative athletic score. I know he didn't test for agility, but no one's going to sit here and say that he isn't elite of the elite when it comes to the athleticism that he's bringing off the edge. And now he did lead Texas A&M in pressures. He just didn't finish. He had 1.5 sacks last year, and that one was against Bowling Green, which is really a tough sentence, right? And so, but that said, I do think when you talk about there's pressures there, there's athleticism there, that's the stuff that translates. I want to pull this up. I pulled this up on Who Dey Bites before the Bengals ever picked Shamar Stewart. This is what I pulled up. And here, take a look at this. Okay, so you're watching on YouTube. I have this up. It's relative athletic score of at least 9.8, a weight of more than 260 pounds amongst defensive ends, picked since 2015. This is your group. I mean, he comes in at what they officially weigh him in the combine, 267. 267, 6'5", and he's jumping off the roof. He's running at insane speeds. His broad is ridiculous. He's a freak. He lands in the same category as Travon Walker from Jacksonville, Myles Garrett, Rashawn Gary, Danielle Hunter, Montez Sweat, Aiden Hutchinson, Jalen Phillips, Yaya Diaby, Preston Smith, Jordan Willis also on the list. Okay, and look, that's what the hell happened there is hard to see. It's a more scar tissue. It's like Myles Murphy, Jordan Willis, both of them scar tissue here in this conversation for Bengals. But I would say it's hard. Avert your eyes from that, Bengals fans, in case you haven't a long time ago. And he was a 3rd-round pick. Walker didn't have production. Danielle Hunter didn't have production. Yaya Diaby didn't have production. I mean, there's a bunch of these guys. Rashawn Gary didn't have production really coming in. And these are all hits. Like, this grouping is the vast majority hits, okay? Yeah. And so when you're talking about this level of players, this is something that does traditionally translate. Now, sometimes it takes a year. I mean, you had Rashawn Gary had 2 sacks in year 1, and his career has taken off really since then. You can say that about a number of guys on this list who maybe start. Trevon Walker, criticized, right, in the Aiden Hutchinson draft for them taking the traits guy. Jacksonville taking the traits guy. Only had 3.5 sacks in year 1. Took off. He's taken off since then. Become a great player. This stuff happens consistently. This is not the scar tissue Bengals fans are dealing with is not necessarily even commonplace amongst athletes of this level that Shamar Stewart is. To me, that's the positive side where I would say it's not as bad as 4.5 sacks in 3 years sounds. That sounds bad. And so I'm just going over that bar. But it's when you put it through a different light of, you make these bets. Everybody at some point has to make these bets because they do consistently tend to hit.
The lack of production is why he was there at 17. If he had a normal sack numbers, he's a top 10 pick easy with that athleticism. And people, it's not an innate skill to finish. The speed, all that the twitch, all that stuff, they're born with that. And we talked about this on the show this afternoon. These young guys sometimes have to learn how to finish, and you're seeing it right now. I mean, it was same with Joseph Osai. He would get in the backfield, and it wasn't until this year that he really started finishing those rushes and coming up with the sacks. And so you feel good if you have a new defensive line coach in Jerry Montgomery, you have Al Golden, you have guys here that you think can get that out of these guys. And it's a gamble, but it's splitting aces. It's not splitting tens. It's not something crazy. The traits are there, and it makes sense when you look at it. And you're right. I think so much of this is the tie back to Myles Murphy, and 0 sacks last year, 3 in year 1, and even in college he had 17.5. That's like 4 times as many as Shamar Stewart had, and we're talking about him not having production. So it is crazy the lack of production he had. But talking to Al Golden, talking to Zac, talking to Shamar, they think it's something that's fixable, and it comes down to technique and drilling it over and over and over again, which is part of being a professional. So I guess the message here is just to show a little patience and wait and see how this goes. And it's you may not even see it in training camp because they can't finish in training camp. We're going to wait and see the preseason games whether he can get back there and finish some of these pass rush moves.
You may not see it this year, but you mentioned that we talked to these guys. Let's bring in. I want you guys to hear a little bit of what Zac Taylor and Al Golden had to say. We'll start with them, and then we'll get to Shamar Stewart.
How do you balance the lack of as much production as you like to see versus the projection? How much of that something that you try to balance?
We anticipate getting a lot of production out of him. I've got great faith in our coaches that, there was a lot of near production obviously there as you watch all the clips with him. But again, we see a tremendous football player who's going to come in and help us and be really productive for us.
How much of what he can do, Zac, is also setting edge? Is there that aspect as well?
No, he's physical. I mean, he's got the dimensions, he's got the speed, he's got the physicalness, he's got the effort. So there's tremendous traits there that we're excited to work with.
You study the premier edge rushers all the time when you're game planning against some of the ones in your division. What about Shamar's, everybody talks about his physical skill set, and that's what excites everybody. What specifically about his physical skill set has you most excited?
He's a tremendous athlete. And so, again, you got to be aware of him. The quarterback's got to be aware of him. Play caller's got to be aware of him. Tackle's got to do a great job defending against him. And so, again, we're just excited about what he can bring to the table. Cool.
Zac, how do you see him fitting into the room? And obviously, there's going to be a question about what this might mean for Hendrickson.
No, it's not a story about anybody else. It's just I don't think you can ever have enough D linemen, especially in this league, in this division. So it doesn't speak to anybody else that's on our football team. It's just adding another weapon to our defense that we can utilize and keep guys fresh and keep guys coming after the quarterback. And being relentless against the run. And so, again, this just speaks to how we want to play football. We want a stout defense, and a lot of times that starts up front. And so I think adding pieces to that puzzle up front is always a helpful thing for us.
When you went back and looked at all of his plays, and Zac was just talking about how even if he didn't get the sack, he was still around. Was each case where he maybe didn't finish at the top of the sack a different case? Was everything different, or did you see one overall thing that you said, well, if we can get him here, we can teach him how to finish?
Yeah, we felt like we can get him to gather a little bit at the top. And complete some of those. He's got the reach and the length to do it. He's got the bend at the top, and he's got speed to power, long arm. So he's got a lot of the things that we want. He's a strong edge setter, but we feel like he's got the traits that we covet, and the play demeanor that we don't have to do anything but get him out there and watch him do it. So from that standpoint, we're excited to work with him.
How would you describe his physical traits?
Well, I think they're elite, right? Again, not just, the 40 and the vertical and that kind of thing, but just how explosive he is, how powerful he is at the point of attack, his ability to anchor down and set it. And he gives you versatility. I mean, he could play a 9, he could play a 6, he could play a 5. He can go ahead and play a 4-eye if you want to move him down. So he gives you a chess piece that's really hard to find as a defensive end. So we're excited about, how to utilize him.
When you guys did meet with them, and I assume the topic comes up of the lack of production, the lack of finishing, how did he address that?
Again, the kid, there's no excuses in him. And again, for us, like Zac was saying earlier, it's all positive for us. There's no negative here. This is a heck of a pick for us. We're excited about him. We're excited about his athleticism, about his toughness, about his play style, all those things. So in terms of, there's a lot of production he's made. You know what I mean? So again, if he converts a couple more sacks and they're not just quarterback hits or quarterback hurries, we're not having this discussion right now because he's making plays that are out of his realm a lot of times too. He's making a lot of plays on the perimeter and plays downfield because he has the skills to do that. So again, if that's the only thing we're focused on when he gets here in terms of quieting that down and making that better and giving him a plan for improvement in terms of that, then we're going to be successful.
All right, so there's Al Golden and Zac Taylor talking about the pick of Shamar Stewart. There's a couple of aspects to this. One, can we put more pressure on Al Golden? I mean, this guy comes in, it's like, look, you are here, and you're here because you know how to develop guys, and you can take young players and you can get the most out of them, okay? You know that horrific defense from last year? It's going to mostly look the same, okay? So we're going to need you to take those guys and make them better. Okay, well, that's fine, Al says. Just give me a first-round pick. Give me a couple of young guys that really do have talent that we can get in here, and let's do it. Okay, we'll give you that. But guess what? Oh, he's a total project. You're going to have to develop him, too, at the same time. And it's like, man, it's just a lot of pressure on Al Golden to develop Myles Murphy, to develop Shamar Stewart up front, to develop Chris Jenkins, to develop McKinley Jackson. Remind you, they don't take a defensive tackle. They still don't have a defensive tackle who can rush the damn passer. They still don't have that, okay? So that's cool. And then you have, you still don't have a linebacker, right, to put next to Logan Wilson. You'll probably get him tomorrow. We'll see if he has any production or what his deal is. And all your corners, by the way, have been totally uneven, and we don't know if you're going to be able to get the flashes out of them consistently or not, but there's hope for that. There is a lot of development.
Oh, by the way, Geno Stone.
And Geno Stone's still here. If the soul of your defense is tackling, that's not necessarily his strong suit, okay? Maybe one of those. Maybe a safety comes tomorrow. Yeah. We'll get to that in a second. But it's just they're heaping so much onto Al Golden to be able to get more out of the same people that were here last year. Maybe he can. But, man, this just adds another challenge on top of a massive one that he already has. That was a pretty striking takeaway from me, is that they just keep making bets that Al can make these guys play better, and perhaps he can. But it's part of the gamble. It's put the same gamble on traits and production is a gamble on one coordinator being able to get this much more out of everybody.
And it's a gamble, but it's not a crazy gamble. That's another parallel because you've got Joe Burrow in that offense. He doesn't have to get it all fixed overnight, and he doesn't have to make this a top 5 defense to make this thing work and let them have a chance to make a run in the playoffs.
The bar is low, and that's good news.
Yeah.
So you have that going on. The other side of this is who felt it more, though, Al Golden or Trey Hendrickson? Okay,
Yeah.
So this is the salvo to Trey Hendrickson that we spent a lot of time talking about with Kelsey on Wednesday when we spent a lot of time in the Trey Hendrickson portion of this, and that is, look, they take edge rusher at 17, the ears go up. What's next? How does that land in Trey's camp? I'm sure he took it great. You got to feel that he just kind of let that one slide off of his back, right, Jay? And I'm sure he took it great. And does this now get the phone ringing? Do the calls show up to the Bengals and say, look, let's revisit this? Does this trade make sense for you now that you have your answer in-house? I would say the nature of who Shamar Stewart is suggests that it's almost kind of like they didn't take one.
Yeah.
Because to count on him to be a real dude in year one, given the nature of the production stuff, I think is a big risk. But by 2026, yes, I think it takes an extension for Trey Hendrickson off the table. I think you now reach you're going to have to play on this 1-year deal. And if you want to hold out, well, it's just more reps for Shamar in camp anyway. And that certainly feels like the direction that this thing goes. Now, what the Bengals feel about those calls that start coming in is something that maybe we learn tomorrow, because it would be the time to act on it would be tomorrow.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you were saying before the draft even, where if there is a trade for Trey Hendrickson, it's not about picks. You have to get an edge rusher back in return. And they drafted one, but is that the same as getting a guy that's already established in the league, regardless of what his level is? And I don't think it is. This still is on the surface right now a project, and I don't know that you can feel comfortable just pulling the trigger on a trade with Trey right now just for picks. It does feel like this is going to be, okay, we have the leverage, you're under contract, go out there and play.
Look, let's play it out though. So let's say they got a pick, somebody dangles 30 something to them for Trey Hendrickson, whatever, just Bears, whatever, I don't care. And you say, okay, you do the deal, you clear the money, you take Mike Green, all right. You now have Mike Green, Shemar Stewart, Myles Murphy, and Joseph Osai as your edge rushers. You have cleared the money to go pay Brandon Sheriff or whatever, and then you use then you start using your picks on other things that you go totally young, and that's scary, right? But you take drama off the table. You save cash that you can distribute to wherever you feel like you maybe need to, or you can add people to, extensions that you could do with other players, whatever that is. I do think that you could see that, and maybe they throw in, maybe it's a 2 and a 4, right? And now you got an extra day 3 pick that you can use on that, a linebacker or a tight end and a running back, or you can just start to do what they know that they need, which is more picks out of this draft, and really go young. You could see that if that deal was enticing enough now that they have Stewart and you can play him, because what was the argument? The argument with Myles Murphy not developing was he didn't play enough. He needed to play more. If you're going to bring the guy in, he's got to play. He's got to contribute. There's a block there with Trey Hendrickson and that whole mess. So I'll be curious as Friday plays along over the course of the day, what is happening on the other end of the phone as people say, saw you took an edge. What's the situation with Trey? Can we try to find an answer here? Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't, but Friday would be the day that you would see it go down. I think if we get past Friday, Jay, that feels like you end up in, okay, now we're just going to be in the face-off through training camp mode, and we're going to be on Trey hat watch or whatever we're going to be on as far as what's going to happen with him this year.
I don't even know if we get all the way through Friday because, you mentioned Mike Green. what if he's not there at 49? And I don't think he will be. Is there another deep edge that you would feel comfortable making that move, trading Trey and saying, okay, we can still get this guy right now, and then, like you said, get the extra picks?
Well, I think you're doing it perhaps at the pick where you see the guy you want. So if it's somebody that's let's just say it's the Bears at 39, and you're sitting there, the Bears are on the clock, and you have told them, look, when you get there, if the guy we want is there, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And if that's what happens or whatever, and again, we're inventing this a little bit here on the fly, but like we're trying to play out for you guys the scenarios that something like this happens now that Shamar Stewart is in the mix in Cincinnati and what that would have to look like. I mean, it could be something like, let's take the Jaguars and the Browns trade, for example. They were working on that thing for 2 weeks, right? And the whole thing was the Jags and Browns they wanted to make sure that Cam Ward was the pick at 1, and as soon as that happens, they'll execute this deal that's in place. You don't think the Bengals knew there was a pretty damn good chance they were going to be taking an edge rusher here in this pick? And if that was the case, they would be willing to go a certain direction. If that is the case, it could go something like that, where the framework is there, and if the pick comes and everything works out, they do it. Is that likely? I'm not saying that's likely. I'm with what Kelsey said the other day. It still kind of feels doubtful, but this is a step in that direction, certainly, when you start having those conversations. Let's talk more about tomorrow, Jay. Well, you know what? We didn't get to Shamar. We should hear from Shamar. We should give Shamar some time.
Delightful young man.
Delightful young man. Does seem to be about all the right stuff and doesn't have any of the off-field things that we spend a lot of time digging other prospects about. So let's give you a little bit of a Shamar Stewart, and then we'll turn the page.
I mean, there could be multiple reasons. I mean, my first 2 years I didn't play as much. In this past year, I mean, I was getting there, but at the same time, it's just technical things along the way to the quarterback that I just need to refine. And of course, just wrapping up on the quarterback once I get there, it's not like I can't get there. I led the team, my team in pressures, and we also had the best D-line in the SEC, I feel like, in my opinion. So it's just minor technical difficulties on my end.
What's the best way to kind of get in that between now and the start of the season, you think, to kind of making sure you're as technical as possible to get on the field as much as possible that first season?
Man, I'm going to come in there and work my tail off. Me and Trey Hendrickson, he going to be my best buddy because I'm going to be under his tail.
Shamar, is there any part of you that's looking forward to coming into a situation where you have something to prove with so many people talking about your lack of production at a college level? Does that add any bit of motivation for you?
Oh, yeah. Big chip on my shoulder. Don't worry. It's going to stay there. I feel like people overlook me for too long. I just got to come in here and just prove y'all right.
Shamar, the defensive coordinator, Al Golden, referred to you as an ascending player. Do you feel like you've scratched the surface of what you're going to be?
Not even close. Trust me. When I get there, it's going to be a scary sight.
All right, that was Shamar Stewart. I'll tell you this. I know people want to feel some kind of way about this pick, and that's fine. You know what? When Jamar Chase said all those audacious things when he was picked about how he was going to break all the records, everybody thought it was friggin' awesome. So when this guy says, when I show up, it's going to be a scary sight. I like that. Yeah. I like his attitude. I like the chip on the shoulder stuff that he talked about. I'm all about that. He does seem to be about all of the right stuff. Al Golden talked about talking with Mike Elko, somebody who had a good relationship with Texas A&M, and that was the resounding thing, is that this is a hard worker. He cares about it. He wants to be great, like all good kid, all those things you want to hear, and I think that comes through when we talk to him a little bit today.
Yeah, and at the same time, as confident as he is, he realizes what he has to get better at. He accepts that. He understands that, he's got a way to go. And he, like, as he said, he hasn't scratched the surface yet. And I love the quote, too, about, I'm going to be under Trey Hendrickson's tail. Like, we're going to be best buddies, because he knows that he needs to align with that guy if he's here and just study him at all times. We talked to A.J. Green before the draft today, and he talked about how, he's not a big talker. T. Higgins isn't a big talker, but he knew T. Higgins was watching him. and he made sure he was on his P's and Q's and doing everything right to lead the way for T. Higgins. And it's kind of the same way with Trey Hendrickson. He's not much of a talker, and he actually doesn't like it if you talk to him. So he's going to be trying to set an example for Shamar, and Shamar is going to be eating up everything he can from him. So just everything he said about today, that you love the confidence, but you also love the fact that he's not coming in full of himself, and he knows he has work to do. He has improvement to make.
Does that mean when Shamar Stewart shows up tomorrow, he's going to complain about his contract?
Could be.
I'm just trying to be just like Trey Hendrickson, okay? Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice that he's going to connect himself with Trey Hendrickson. It might not be during training camp, but you know what? It's okay. At some point, I get it, and you think you could be a similar style of player, no doubt. All right, let's talk a little bit about Friday and what's still in any distance. I think you switch from, the big swing of day one and trying to find pass rush by any means necessary, to time to fill needs.
Yeah.
Guard, linebacker, maybe safety. I think the ones that felt more like starter needs, find that hit that can come in and contribute this year, is on the agenda on Friday. And the names there weren't a ton of surprises. I mean, there are some names. I mean, Nicky Memwari from South Carolina did not get taken. Will he make it to 49? That seems highly unlikely. Mike Green, who we were talking about earlier. I'd be curious to see if some of Devin Ezeraku from Boston College did not go in round one. I expect to see some of these guys to go pretty early, but it would be interesting if that's part of where you see the slide. I still think we're talking about guard at 49 here. And I think the names that we've been talking about here are sitting there. Ratledge, Savanaia, Donovan Jackson went in round one. He went late in round one. And they both went. And so, but you're still the guards are there. Some of the guard tackle type of players are there. And so Xavier Watts, obviously the safety out of Notre Dame, Carson Swessinger did not go in round one from UCLA. He's a really intriguing name. If he does a slide, it's like he feels like he could be the next Logan Wilson. Well, they might have to sweat it out like they did Logan Wilson back in 2020 when they sweated his fall with his name at the top of the board for a while. If he were to make it to 49, that would be incredibly tempting for them to feel like they fill a need and set him right next to Logan Wilson there at linebacker.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I still think it comes down to one of those offensive linemen, tackle guard. It's just, and even if, like you said, the Trey Hendrickson thing still seems like a long shot where maybe they could clear space and get Sheriff in here, but that seems so far off. You can't bank on that. It is. Second round is all about need, and that is right now their biggest need. They could still use a 3-10. Like you said, they don't have a pass rushing guy inside, but it feels like second round is guard. If not, definitely some point Friday they're coming at us with an offensive lineman. It feels like 49 is the perfect spot for it.
Yep, it sure does. And so there's a lot of different options. Check out stories up on The Athletic, on SI. We have all kinds of stuff up on stuff that went down tonight and what we expect to see tomorrow and everything else. So make sure you are checking that out. And then pop on in. Noon on Friday, we'll be doing a live stream on the YouTube channel. Make sure you're getting those alerts and you're a subscriber there, because we have all kinds of great content going on. We'll dive more into this stuff, take some more of your questions in the chat, and of course, prepare yourself to spend Tuesday night with us down at BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar down at the Banks. We'll be starting at 5 o'clock. Mike Potts will join us in Nation, and we will pepper him with all of these questions and your questions that everybody's going to have about this draft as they get it rolling. The fun really starts the next couple of days. The picks will be coming off fast and furious. Maybe some trades. We shall see if that happens. Either way, we'll be here to cover it all with you, and the Walkout will be here all the same. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening and for watching. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one.